What's up, guys? I'm EJ. This is Kendall here, and today we're going to be doing an international edition of our NBA draft comparisons video for the class of 2020. Kendall, there are not a lot of prospects that are being considered for the first round when it comes to the international players, so it should be interesting kind of breaking down these few players that we've selected. Deni Avdija from Israel. We got Killian, we got Theo Maledon, and we threw in RJ Hampton, from playing over in Australia, of course, from Texas.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting crop because, all these guys are, guards on some level. Obviously Avdija is 6'8", but we're talking, it's an interesting class because there's no Luka Doncic, but it is an interesting class, much better than the Euro class that we had last year. So all the guys that could be drafted in the lottery, so it should be interesting. And Hampton's not European, but all guys not playing in the NCAA that could be drafted in the lottery is also including LaMelo Ball, who we did.
Yes, he was in our previous video, which you guys check out, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. That was our first comparison video. It took a lot of the top players that we're expecting to see in this draft. But I'll go first, since you went first last time. I'll start with Deni. I'm going to go with Andrei Kirilenko. This one was tough. I had a tough time with a lot of these guys, to be honest, because they're all very unique players. But when I watched Deni play, the first thing I saw was this guy plays hard. He's all over the place. He's going to the rack hard. He's defending hard. He's blocking shots. He's rebounding hard. He hustles. He plays the right way in that regard. And when I think about a guy who was kind of a jack of all trades way back in the day, that to me that's Andrei Kirilenko, a guy who could block shots, who could defend multiple positions, who could drive to the rim. Neither guy was a great shooter. Deni might have a little more potential as a shooter, but right now he's pretty streaky, similar to Kirilenko. The only difference I really see, though, and why I almost thought about Hedo Turkoglu was because Deni, especially playing for the Israeli under-20 team, showed an ability to be a ball handler, particularly in the pick and roll action. So that's not something really Kirilenko did too much. So that aspect of his game, being 6'9" and being able to do that kind of reminds me of Hedo Turkoglu, who, as he got later on in his career, was just a great a distributor and ball handler for his position. So I'm going to go mostly Kirilenko with a mix of Turkoglu.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, you mentioned Hedo Turkoglu. That's someone that I would compare him to as well. Mm-hmm. If we're talking for me, I think it's the difference. For me, the difference with Deni Avdija is if the team that drafts him wants to mold him and use him eventually in his prime as a initiator, the offense, almost a point forward type, or even a point guard, as we've seen with Ben Simmons and Luka Doncic and LeBron. In today's NBA, it doesn't really matter what height you are to play point guard.
Positions were only made so a novice can follow the game. Shout out to Jalen Rose.
So because of that, I look at Deni Avdija as a guy that Hedo Turkoglu in today's NBA could be a point guard for certain teams. And look, people may look at Hedo Turkoglu and think that that's a disrespect, but Hedo Turkoglu was a very, very good player, especially in Orlando. In today's NBA, he might even be even better. I don't know if Avdija has superstar potential, but if he tops out of Hedo Turkoglu, that could be very good. It also depends on if the team that drafts him. Another guy I would look at in that initiator role besides Turkoglu, who you mentioned, is Tomas Satoransky, who another guy. Doesn't sound like a superstar, but his potential, similar to Avdija, was not unlocked playing the wing early in his career in Washington. But eventually, when John Wall had injuries and they needed a backup, they moved Satoransky to the one, and they really realized this guy can play. Sure. And now Chicago, they're playing him at that point, and that's another spot where I could see Avdija fitting in the NBA level if they realize that he, for whatever reason, because he's not good enough or the level of competition is too hard or he's just not as good as the guys on the roster at the point guard position, and they move him to the three, I could see him being a Cedi Osman type of player. He has to develop his jump shot. Cedi Osman can really shoot. This is assuming if he says to himself, I'm gonna commit to shooting the jump shot, and not being the guy with the ball in my hands, because we have to realize that, well, yes, he showed a lot of potential as a initiator and a playmaker playing for the Israeli national team in the under 20
And
European.
NBA teams got a lot better options.
Yeah,
guys
playing the under 20, they got more options, and it's going to be harder.
Yeah, and that's too.
The competition's not going to be the same. I'm sure. Yeah, you probably put me out there against the Latvian under 20 team.
Don't disrespect the Latvian.
The Latvian under 20 team. I can pretty
sure Porzingis got a cousin out there that can play.
Right,
let's relax.
Punch my shot anytime I got to the basket. But so those are some things you have to consider. Avdija, but I would look at Turkoglu, but then also Seti Osman and Satoransky.
Okay, I want to talk about Theo Maledon playing for a French club in the Euro League. This guy was also very tricky because when I think about a guy like him who really, truly looks to set up his teammates, pass first guy, who can also get his shot, a lot of these point guards now in the NBA, everybody's looking for guys who can score. And not to say he can't, but that's not really something he's looking to do. So in trying to find a guy who's 6'5" that matches his game was a little tricky. I had to go to my Wayback Machine. I'm going to go with Terry Porter. So,
who?
He was Terry Porter.
Head coach of the Portland Pilots, man.
Yes, and a great Portland Trailblazer, two-time All-Star. I went with Terry Porter because, to me, Porter, 6'3", at that time, big guard, but not necessarily a physically imposing guard. Excellent passer, guy who always looked for his teammates. Wasn't flashy, wasn't a guy who was trying to, throw a million behind that passes and stuff, but just really did a good job of running a team and getting everybody shots. And when it was time for him to score, was extremely efficient. That's what I see from Maledon. He's not a guy who's going to be out there looking to get 30 or 40 points, but he's going to run a team well. He's going to get guys open shots. He's always going to look for the open man. And when it's time for him to get his buckets, he can get them. He's a really reliable shooter at this point, which is impressive at this point in his career. And he's shown not a great athlete, but I think even from the highlights I saw from last year and seeing him this year, I'm already seeing a physical development that's very noticeable.
Yes,
so he may end up getting more athletic and more physically imposing as he gets older. So right now, I say a guy like Terry Porter. Played in the league for a long time, was a really good player. I think that's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah, so for the viewers that are under 15 or under 20.
Under 30, some of these people.
Yeah, exactly. That don't know who Terry Porter is, have never watched him, don't know what that means for my team if I have Theo Maledon.
You're in very good shape if you draft Terry Porter in 2020.
Maybe not number really one, but
right,
in the top 10, top 15,
top 5, you got Terry Porter. That's really good.
You'll take it. For me, I'm going to another guy that, isn't a superstar, but is a modern-day player. I'm going to go with George Hill, who is another guy you may look at that and say, that's a little bit of a role player slight. But look, George Hill in Indiana was the starting point guard for a conference finals team. And George Hill can really play. There are some similarities. You mentioned size. Maledon's 6'5". It's hard to find guys 6'5" that play the way he does. George Hill 6'3". I think they have a similar play type. George Hill is a point guard that can play off the ball, but he can pound the ball a little bit. He can get around and play the point as much as he wants to. He can shoot the ball. Mm-hmm. I think probably a little better than Maledon does at this stage, but similar to Maledon, not a ISO shot creator at all. He's a guy that can play in pick and roll and can hit spot up shots. And that's what I think Maledon could be in his prime. I don't necessarily ever see him be an isolation shot creator. And, he's a guy, Maledon, that is interesting because, he's risen up the ranks, in the French league and really blew up last year, and kind of has had a slow start to the year. But we also have to remember, not only is he playing this French league, but now he's playing the Euro League this season. And he's actually had some very encouraging performances recently playing in the Euro League. He had a huge game against Panathinaikos, scoring 19. At his age, that's very impressive. He also plays for Tony Parker's team in France, and he has a little bit of Tony Parker in his game, which is interesting as well. And George Hill's a guy that also played with Tony Parker, when he was in San Antonio. So you can definitely see some similarities to George Hill in that comp.
What about another big guard for France, but he's playing in Germany, Killian Hayes? This one is a little bit of a giveaway because he's left-handed, light-skinned, 6'4", likes to shoot. I'm going with D'Angelo Russell. But sometimes it is what it is. And that, to me, is a pretty simple, easy comparison. Both guys are really solid in scoring on all three levels, but very, very adept at the pull-up jump shot. Killian Hayes' step-back three is probably one of the best moves of any player in this draft. I mean, the fact that he's 18 and he hits that shot with such regularity from distance.
It's not the LaMelo Ball half-court shot.
No, definitely not.
The LaMelo Ball call out my half-court shot.
No, not the LaMelo Ball. Though LaMelo Ball's 20-foot teardrop is also pretty crazy as a move that any of these guys have. But I mean, Killian Hayes hits that jump shot with regularity, and that's a shot that in the NBA, if you can hit it as James Harden and Luka have shown, you could cause a lot of issues. Good handle. I think he can get a little better at his handle, but we've already seen some improvement in that aspect. I do think he's a point guard in the NBA. I know there's some questions about that. Good passer. He looks for his teammates. He's not a nut in any way, but he's a guy who can score. I think when he gets to the NBA, he's going to be a guy that you're going to look at as a scoring guard. So I thought D'Angelo Russell, crafty guard, can score. Not necessarily going to beat you with athleticism, but finds a way to get the ball in the hole.
Killian Hayes is probably, we haven't done any rankings or anything, but he's probably my favorite guard in this draft. With that being said,
it may sound crazy to some people, but I might be right with you there.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like him. I really think he's solid.
Yeah, so like, he's not, but at the same time, he's not. He's a young player, yes, and certainly a lot of these guys are all the same age. But Killian Hayes is young. Like the way he plays, like he's not physically imposing at all. You know, like you said, his handle is solid, but he's very left-hand dominant, which a lot of left-hand players are. Just like D'Angelo Russell's left-hand dominant. So he has areas to improve. But at the same time, for me, I'm gonna look at a comp of Manu Ginobili, and this is in the vein of. I agree D'Angelo Russell is an obvious one that makes sense at the point guard position, but in an alternate universe where maybe Killian Hayes has to carve out a role at the 2 guard, at the all-star guard, or maybe coming off the bench, Manu Ginobili fits that archetype perfectly for a guy like Killian Hayes, who's lefty, can get to the basket, can pull up, also plays with a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger, a lot of flash. Because we have to remember he's playing with pros and on a lot of levels is one of their best players, if not the best player in the team. I mean, he almost has 50-40-90 splits.
Yeah.
As a guy that, is playing, at a high level of basketball.
At 18.
At 18 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive regardless of who you're playing against, regardless of how old you are, what league you're playing in. So while he's not playing in the EuroLeague, he's playing the Euro Cup, and he's playing in Germany, he's much more advanced than Frank Ntilikina, for example, coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, he shows a lot of the skill set and move set of guys that are our best scorers at the guard position in today's NBA. Whether it be a Dame Lillard or a James Harden or Luka Doncic, like he has that feel. I don't know if he'll ever be that type of player, but if there's anybody in this draft that has that feel, it's Killian Hayes.
The only reason why I thought about Manu Ginobili, I also thought about Goran Dragic. Both lefties, obviously. But the only reason why I shied away from those guys was because both those guys were tenacious at going at the rim.
Right.
I mean, they were truly slashers in every sense of the word, and
I didn't watch Manu at 18.
Manu could finish over you in terms of dunking. So that's not something I really see in Killian Hayes' game. He can score at the rim. He has a lot of nifty floaters and a lot of nifty right-hand, left-handed under scoop kind of shots. But that's something he's going to have to improve on, I think, in terms of really going at the rim hard and getting fouled if you have to. He kind of shies away from contact a lot. Those guys never shied away from contact. Right. Dragic, as a rookie, was a guy who was going at the rim hard. Manu, as a rookie, was a guy who was going at the rim hard. Killian, once he gets I think that's one of the last aspects of his game in terms of really becoming a complete scorer that he really needs to get. If he can get that part of his game,
Russell
he's going to be
never gotten it. And it's still great, but it limits him.
Right, exactly. And that's why I like the Russell comparison, because Russell had similar issues where I think Russell, one of his weaknesses coming out of Ohio State was we didn't look at him as a guy who can finish at the rim at a very, very high level. So I think that's an apt comparison. What about our last player? He's an American, but he is playing overseas in Australia, RJ Hampton. I'm going to go with Dante Exum for him. And
that's the obvious.
I know a lot of people have been going with that. I know
they look like each other.
2 obvious picks in a row. The guys look at each other. But I do feel like Dante Exum is a decent comparison because the one thing when I look at RJ Hampton, and it's not a diss to him at all, but he's extremely raw. And if it was up to me, if I was an NBA evaluator, I would actually love to see him do another year of development.
Another year playing in Australia. Man.
I mean, maybe I would tell him to play in Europe instead of Australia.
Or go to the G League.
Or go to the G League. But and he may have to do that anyway, because I think he is very raw. But I pick Exum because both guys play the right way. Both guys look to pass. They're both really long, really athletic, and they have they have the skill set potentially to be a point guard, but their instincts aren't all there yet. And I'm hoping that Hampton can go way past Exum, obviously, and just shoot right past him in terms of his development as a game. But right now, that's the kind of player I see. A guy who can come in, he can give you some great defensive minutes. He can give you some good point guard minutes in a pinch, but not necessarily a guy I'm looking at to play 35 minutes at the point guard position. I may need to play him at the 2 a little bit and put him with another ball handler. But one thing I do like about him is he plays extremely hard. He looks to pass.
Smart kid.
And he's a really smart kid. He's really intelligent. If you ever listen to him talk about the game, you tell he thinks the game through, which I like to see. I just think that he's extremely raw. So he was actually the hardest guy to come up with a comparison with because I just feel like he's a mold of clay. I feel like in 3 years, he may be a totally different player.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the athletic profile and some of the skills are there. I just don't think he's put it all together.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say he's not Dwayne Wade in 2 years?
Yeah, I will say he's not Dwayne Wade in 2 years.
He's not going to be Dwayne Wade, but in terms of the play style, who knows? It depends on who he's working out with.
Sure.
He could play like Steph Curry if he wants to, or he could play like Russell Westbrook. He has, like you say, he has a lot of interesting skill sets that he can mold into, but for me, I'm going to go with a guy who's also another Texas point guard. Obviously RJ Hampton being from Dallas. This guy from Houston, I'm going to go with De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron Fox was a raw player coming out of Kentucky. We've looked at him as, is he even going to be ready to start? And the Kings didn't think he was ready to start coming out of Kentucky. And I look at RJ Hampton as a guy that I agree. I think he's raw, but I think. De'Aaron Fox is a high-end comp. This is not like I think automatically like he's gonna be De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah,
really,
De'Aaron Fox is like a borderline all-star type of guard right now.
Yeah, at his peak, he's one of the best point guards in the league at times. So I'm not saying that's where RJ Hampton's gonna be, but there are some similarities in their prospect, in their past prospect evaluations and scouting reports, and I can see if he develops that playmaking point guard instinct and a little more tenacity on defense. They have some similarities in their physical profile, ability to score, and like you said, that heady mindset, high IQ basketball-wise, and even off the court. There are a lot of similarities with De'Aaron Fox. Another guy I would look at, Jordan Clarkson, if he doesn't necessarily develop those things and has to maybe play more of that 2-guard role and that combo guard, 1 and 2. Yeah. But, he's not necessarily the scorer right now that Clarkson is. But coming out of high school, I mean, he averaged I think he's one of the all-time scorers in the state of Texas high school basketball, and that was only 3 years. Yeah. He didn't even play a 4th year of high school basketball. So there are a lot of also similarities to Jordan Clarkson. And one more guy, a little further back. This is maybe a little more of a low-end comp, but I think if he really develops as a shooter, but not much else, I see a little bit of Daniel Gibson as well. Daniel Gibson was a guy that...
I don't think he'll be able to shoot like that.
And
to be fair, he had a really good reputation as a shooter coming out of high school. But Daniel Gibson was a sniper.
To be fair, Daniel Gibson was more streaky coming into the league and kind of had to carve out a role as a pure shooter, where he was more of that scorer at Texas. I hope that RJ Hampton, I hope he becomes a superstar. But if he can't develop into that, lead guard, if he's like, I'm just going to work on my jump shot, I can also see him.
I just feel like if he's not going to become that type of player, I don't think he's a shooter. I think he's going to be more of like a guy who's coming off the bench. He's bringing me energy. He's picking up a guy full court. When he gets his chances, he's slashing to the rim and he's running my offense. I don't see him as a guy who I'm bringing that guy in to score immediately.
But we don't. Yeah, that's
the
thing.
He's so raw. He's so young. I don't know. But I mean, when I say score, I should say shoot like that. Like Daniel Gibson's coming in and he's just gunning.
Right.
I don't know if I see that being his role. I think his role is more of you mentioned a guy like George Hill. I think that's kind of more of how I see him, to be honest. Is he'd be that kind of player. He's a guy when coming in, he's going to play some defense. He's going to hit some timely shots, and that's it. I'm not asking him to do a lot.
Yeah, I just think he has more upside than Maledon, for example.
Do you think he's that fast when you compare him to Fox?
Absolutely.
He's fast. We think he's that fast.
I mean, De'Aaron Fox is one
he's
of the
special
2 or 3 fastest players in the league.
Right.
I think Hampton, in terms of guys coming out of high school, I I think Hampton, is on the
I know he can
similar level.
I know he can go, but
that's where I
Fox
think
speed is special speed.
That's where I think like the George Hill and the Exum, those guys, and Exum was pretty quick as well.
Yeah,
I don't think those guys have the vertical hops that Hampton has. Hampton
I agree with
get
that.
Up.
Yeah.
Similar to Clarkson and Fox in some level. I agree Fox is probably a little faster end to end, but Fox is John Wall level fast.
Yeah, Fox is one of the
Rose,
fastest guys I've seen. So
don't tell Westbrook that because he'll tell you he's too fast. So, but
that's gonna end this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. What comparison do you have for these 4 players? Leave a comment below. Also, be sure to like this video, and if you did enjoy this video, subscribe to our channel, New Generation Media. And also check out our podcast, New Generation Sports Talk. We talk plenty about not only basketball, but other sports. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn. That's Kendall. I'm EJ. Thank you guys for watching. Take it easy.